14-2025-20, that Ronald Buckingham be employed part-time as an equipment operator 1 in the road department effective June 9th, 2025.
Okay. Do we have a motion? Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I second.
Discussion.
So,
Any
yeah, go ahead.
any past experience, anything like that?
Trucking, yes, I mean, as far as the farm background, he's got some farm background, as a trucker, so this position is primarily gonna be used for mowing or gravel roads and running a tractor. And again, it's a seasonal job, so it's basically from now until, we get in October when our mowing's done, and they can be used for other things. And again, we usually target somebody that fits that mold as far as a retired individual would fit this as far as a part-time goes.
And that was gonna be my question, so you said specifically doing mowing, but some other things for.
Yep, their job description is anything and everything we ask, but primarily they're hired to be a mower for us, so it's what we use that position.
And so you'll take care of all the county, the whole county, basically?
We run two mowers on the gravel roads, and then one of them will stop and work on paved roads, but typically those two mowers will work gravel roads. And when they get done with the first round, they go back and start the second round, so it is a slow process for us to get around it.
CDL?
Yeah, any person that we hire that works in the maintenance side has to have a CDL license for us.
You're fine.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Okay.
I can probably go ahead and read this one. So this would be motion 14-2025-20. That agreement number 2025-C-094 with Iowa DOT to pave granular approaches at 4 intersections west of Wayland on Highway 78 is hereby approved. It is further moved that the chairman of the Henry County Board of Supervisors is hereby authorized to execute the agreement.
We have this motion, someone would like to make?
Yeah, I make a motion that we approve the agreement with the DOT.
Is there a second?
Yes, sir.
Discussion?
So, Jake, does this do the same thing as you've done on the others, like 50 feet or whatever it is?
Yes, correct. So we are targeting Ash Avenue, which is over by Coppic. That will be on the south side of the road. 110th Street, which is the gravel road that kind of hits Highway 78 at a really kind of a weird angle. And that's really more to keep our blade off the shoulder, so that's probably the most expensive one. And then Benton Avenue, which would be the north and south section, will do that as we have quite a bit of heavy traffic. There is one more gravel road that is right at the city limits of Wayland going north. There, they're gonna be doing just the regular 10-foot approach, mainly because we're at slower speeds as you come into town, and that's not.
Visibility.
Yeah. So the overall for this is right around 60,000 is the estimate to do those 4. So as we're picking and choosing how we're doing it, that's what we're.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Motion and second on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? No.
And then Mark. Sign there. Okay, so that is those. I do have one permit. This is an underground utility permit. This is a new service for water to a new home on Oakland Mills Road, and it's actually with Mount Pleasant Utilities, since they do run in our right of way there from their own treatment. We're good with that. Thank you.
So when it comes to permits, I see that when we signed all those permits with the underground cable, that they're really making progress in South western part of the county.
Yep.
KCTC, I think, did most of that.
Yeah,
So they are just all over the place.
they're, KCTC is moving really well. They're actually pretty well done in the southwest part. They're now moving over east now on some projects, and they've got more work in Lee County to do, but they are wrapping up things.
Yeah, they had 16 pieces of equipment in there, putting in boxes and cable.
Yeah, and they've done,
It's pretty intense.
they have done a really nice job of traffic control and working with us on doing things correctly, so.
Is some of that going along the edge of the shoulder?
On gravel roads, we put it on the shoulder.
Yeah, okay.
And the idea there is that it's bored under pipes, and
Yeah.
then it's in an area, so if we have to do ditching or road improvement, or shoulder widening, it's not an area that
That we have to worry
affects us.
about.
There is a little bit of pain when they first put it in, because we sometimes have to deal with the road issues or just some rock, and that's part of the permit too, but, overall, it keeps it out of our way for future stuff, is the idea.
So what's the fine for rupturing a line, Bill? 60,000?
Fiber optic, 60,000 a minute.
Ouch.
Yeah, depending on what size it is, yes, we don't, so that's why we try to get them all underneath our new culvert, or any existing culverts that are out there, so that's a.
They go under the culvert?
Yep, so anything that's new going in, if they're not, and they go over top, then we would argue that we're not liable, because permit says that they're under. So. And we work pretty well, so we're a little different than a private contractor, because they're in our right of way to work. But we have had some issues where the past, if we have to do locates and all that, so. Yeah, if we work without a locate, then we're in trouble.
Yeah, they're gonna, yeah, it looks really good, they've done a really good job. Unfortunately, I don't think they're hooking up, but they're just putting the line in, because I know I'm not gonna get it.
Yeah, not everybody's hooked up yet, yes, there's options out there now.
Yeah, I'm not one of those options, unfortunately.
Okay, all right, maintenance update, blade operators, we're blading roads, the last week here, we're working with some of that moisture, things will start slowing down a little bit, they're helping out in some of our other projects. Spraying, we started working on stone shoulders, and, we are switching back to doing a second round of noxious weeds, so, the weeds have kinda started to take off again, so, they went around the first time, now they're going back and hitting those spots again, so they're working on some noxious weeds.
Excuse me, I had a question on that, so, and you probably know this, Chad, but how does that tie into our weed commissioner then? Does he get with you guys at all, or?
So,
And I know
they're-
Leland had this question some
yeah,
time ago.
they're separate entities.
Yeah.
So we are responsible for roadside only. The weed commissioner is responsible for the county.
Okay.
When I say county, that is outside the right of way, that is a neighbor sees the other neighbor has an issue with weed control, they would file their concern with the weed commissioner. We do get reports from the weed commissioner saying, hey, I noticed this in your right of way here, and then we try to work with them to say, yep, we're trying to take care of ours, but if you look on the other side of the road, or the fence line, or whatever, there's a problem that might be contributing to what we're dealing with, but it's a never-ending battle. I mean, the noxious weed list, there's a lot, and a lot of depends. Last year, we had a drier summer. Drier summers typically encourage more weeds that we would see, because they're a little bit hardier on growing, but yeah, that's a process. So when we get concerns with it, a lot of times people call us directly if it's in our right of way, we can respond. We have a map that we work off of each year, and then trying to document what we sprayed, where we sprayed, and then are we, he knows if there's teasel here, he's gonna go hit that teasel the next year, and then ideally, we hopefully would see that diminish. But we do spraying and mowing are our two operations as far as control and the right of way. So
do you
we're only allowed to go in 5
So do you GPS log all that in so you know exactly where
We
you're
are
going?
not yet. Eventually we will. Right now we are using maps and using GIS when it comes back in. So Michaela is starting to build a map that will be something that
That you
we
can
can
work with.
track a little more history of it, but we have not used GPS equipment for the IRDM side of it, actually collecting data out in the field yet. But that someday could be coming.
Yeah, because obviously the weed spots are consistently bad, and we're in that weed season, especially with multiple floral rows this time of year to spray, so.
Yeah, but noxious weeds is, yeah, anything that's on that noxious weed list is what we target. So there are some weeds that we get called on that are not on the list, even if they are a nuisance, usually through mowing, and when that works, we're trying to mow it.
Okay. Right, thank you.
Well, get my bearings here, okay. We talked about mowing, Spot Rock Hall. The big project we had this week where we had a lot of our crew working on is Hickory Avenue. We talked about, last week, we're gonna close it this week, so we closed the road on Tuesday. And, we removed the existing culvert on Tuesday. They placed a new culvert in yesterday, got most of it backfilled yesterday. And today they're working on some tile, that we have, and then riprap around the culvert itself. And so we should have the road open for the weekend, barring no more any breakdown. So that project went well. It was a very wet hole, a lot of water running through that tile and culvert, but we got it in and backfilled pretty well. So, miscellaneous construction, Norris Asphalt, the contractor is scheduled to start seeding tomorrow. They're gonna be mobilizing some equipment in today, the seeding contractor, but they're gonna start working on seeding tomorrow into next week. And then they'll do mulching after they get their seeding done, and then putting in some erosion control protections, either netting or ditch checks and things like that. So, we're seeing the end of that project. Old Highway 34, the rock was placed for the interlayer. Again, we're waiting on a seal coat contractor. They are working on another part of their contract, in Jefferson County. So, the indication I had is, once that's done, then they'll come back and finish their rock interlayer on Old 34 for Jefferson County. And then the seal coat will follow. So on our portion, the rock is down, as the road is still closed to traffic at this point. So that's my update, unless you guys have questions for me or comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Good thought.
I'll sit in the back.
I'll come back.
Next on our agenda is our General Assistance Director, Sarah Berndt. Sad to say, I am guessing this is your last report ever to me.
That is my last report. I am no longer the General Assistance Director. That was transitioned to Canadian Public Health on yesterday.
Floor is yours.
All right. So, like I said, we transitioned to Public Health yesterday, keeping the same phone number. Derek was supposed to get that transferred. We let him know that we were transferring, so they'll have the same phone number. I got all of the forms and documents and everything updated with Katie's information. Got the request in for the General Assistance page on the county website to be updated with all of the new information and the forms with the correct information on them. I sent a letter to the funeral homes notifying them of the change to public health. And I also let them know that we have 3 cremations left at this point in time. A lot of time you'll see over the last report period was spent, 10% of my time that is going through the process of getting things ready to transition to Katie and her staff, meeting with them, going over the way I did things, got the files transitioned, or Tyler took those over last week, so they're working on scanning those in. So I think it's gone very well, and I think that, you know, I let Katie know you're gonna have about the same 6 to 8 things coming through your phone lines or through your door, so you're gonna get used to that pretty easily. So that's it. So I had 19 contacts. A lot of those contacts were more questions or people wanting an application and then not following through. I had a couple of calls for cremations. One, their significant other was supposed to follow through and did not. And then the other one, they were actually in a care facility in Henry County. Their last residential address was in Lee County, so that one did not move forward. You know, past due bills still seem to be our big contact point, and a request for transportation to get to work. And I think that's really my update.
Any questions?
And just an application for someone to get to work, so they come to you with that request and ask for monetary assistance?
They want gas to put in their vehicle to get back and forth to work, and that is not something that's in our policy that we are able to do. So unfortunately, I have to tell them no, and that there's not a lot of resources for things like that to be able to get that.
Did you ever, did any of those people ever reference C-Bus for transportation?
No.
That's only $2.50 within the community.
I think, you know, obviously their point is they want that financial support, cause they don't have the money to put the gas in the car, or, you know, to get the C-Bus, so they're just looking for something to, and I don't, you know, I think that it's worth the ask to help you get to a job where you can be stable in and take care of your own needs. I mean, when I was young and first married, I needed to get some assistance, and I needed assistance one time, and then I was able to get set up to be, you know, I think fairly successful, so.
It would appear that way.
It would appear that way, so anyhow. And then I also wanted to let you know that you will have no unemployment liability. Melissa left to go work for adult probation, and Jordan let me know today that she's giving her resignation. She's going to be going to work for the Primary Care Association. So we will all be out of county employment on June 13th.
And primary care is the governing agency that's gonna be responsible for our district then?
Responsible for all the districts in the state and our district as well. So yeah, we've got a gal from ATS has been hired for a navigator position, so there's 3 of us from our district that, you know, we know each other, so that's pretty nice. Know some people that are gonna be there, and all 3 of us are starting the 16th with our primary care, so.
I got a question. On the cremation issue, we've never had like an inmate ever qualify for that. Inmate that dies in the panel, in the institution out here.
I'm not sure where the responsibility lies with that. I mean, there used to be burial plots where they would bury the detainees that were not claimed. But for the most part, the only way that you would be responsible for a detainee is if they lived in Henry County prior to them going into prison.
I saw here a while back, we had a couple inmates that had passed while incarcerated at the Mount Pleasant. And there's fees associated with that going out to that. I don't know, it just seems to me like if they're incarcerated in a state penitentiary, the state of Iowa ought to have some skin in that game, you know.
Yeah, again.
I mean, they're a ward of the state, you know, they don't have a choice of where they're living in Mount Pleasant or Fort Madison or whatever. It just seems like the state ought to have some skin.
And I would agree with that. If it is an unclaimed deceased person, it's gonna have to be the state's responsibility. Otherwise, you know, they're gonna probably kick it back to the family members in the community who may or may not be able to afford to take care of that. So, but that would then be a request of the county where they fell from.
Okay.
Anything else?
Not for me. Thank
The
you.
only thing, Sarah, I would just say, I want to publicly say thank you for all you've done. How many years have you sat across from me?
June 4th, it will have been 24. So
So
I didn't make it to 24. I wanted to make it to 25, didn't hit that goal, but I'm pretty happy with 24.
I can say, we would not be where we are without you. We want your guidance and the direction we've had on both the mental health portion and on the general assessment. So, it's always been a pleasure to work with you, and that you have always been forthright to us, and I always appreciated that, so thank you very much.
I appreciate working for the county. It's been a great 24 years. I've had a few rough days, but pretty much all of them have been very good days. And
Even when Gary C. was kicking and screaming, so that was always fun lines.
favorite story. I think I've used that in an interview or two.
All right.
Thank you. I might pop in and say